How was the trip?
It was fine. Going to San Francisco is always a little bit of an experience, right? I attend Config ever since the first edition. That was actually when I first visited San Francisco back in 2020.
Yeah.
And it's a place for itself as an event is really cool. San Francisco as a city is like 50-50. You either get a great experience or a weird experience. And I've been seeing the city change once a year every time that I go there. And it's an interesting reality. But yeah, the trip was fine. Config, the conference for Figma, is really cool. It's like, as I said in the LinkedIn post, it's like Christmas for designers. You get back and you basically meet with the family again, right? A bunch of people from all over the globe that you kind of just made friends with as the community was growing. So that really just worked well, and it was really cool. And then all the other stuff that Figma always offers, the fun, the swag, it's a bunch of really cool merch.
Yeah.
This one didn't came from there, but it's also from there.
Wow.
Which is the Design is Dead one.
That's so cool.
They sold out in minutes. But yeah, it's the spirit of it, like that community-filled space with a bunch of people kind of just getting together, chatting about so many things, some more dense, others a little bit more just chit chats. What's up, buddy? How's life? And like, that's really cool. Every time that I go there and I meet people that I know from other parts of Europe, other parts of the US, Canada, Philippines, it's just super, super cool to just have these many amazing people that I know from all around the globe. And we actually get to meet face to face and have a moment of, we're actually a global community. And it's super nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so cool that there is an event that unites so many people and has a design tool. It's probably one of the most popular in the world. And it's nice that it does this kind of events for the community as well.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that, like, when we look at how big Figma is, at the same time, we need to realize how small it is.
That's true.
Which is interesting. Figma as a tool is amazing, and it grew at a very fast rate. But you have a big part of the community of design and creatives around the world who either don't know Figma or think of Figma as a software design tool. And that part has always been really interesting to me. When you get there, there's also this thing which I always have to have that conversation, which is, I love you guys, but get out of your bubble and go speak with the people that don't know Figma. And you're actually going to get a different reality check. And actually, you're going to learn a lot about what people are doing or not doing, what they want to learn or what they don't want to learn. Because I teach so many people also outside of these moments. I do like UX, UI training and Figma trainings. Every time that I see people like learning about stuff that I've been doing in Figma for almost 10 years now, and it feels mind-boggling to them that actually is a reality, that their workflows could be so much easier. And I find it so interesting to see, just by thinking about design a little bit differently, how much they've actually, the amount of change that it actually affected on the global overview of what design can be and what these communities can be. And yeah, it's a world of its own. And it's also a very privileged place to be at. If you ever have the chance, or anyone that might be listening to this, to visit the conference, or even just, the user groups will do local watch parties for the conference. Just go, just meet people, just have fun, because it's one of the best things that Figma has is this realm of openness that comes with the community, that people literally just, they can't shut up about what they've been doing. And everyone is basically listening very attentively and carefully, because everyone is super eager to learn what everyone else is doing. And there's a lot of genuine human connection there, which I feel like it's part of their secret sauce, right? That way that people find themselves meeting each other, sharing a lot of love for shared interests, literally the things that they are doing, the things that they are building, and it kind of just grows a lot in that sense. But
yeah, that's so cool. I feel like we jumped straight into the sauce, into the fun, but I still don't know you a lot, and still you probably do not know me. So let's get to know each other a little bit more. I'm curious about you, what you do at the moment, and who you are.
Okay. So if people haven't got my name yet, my name is Bruno Figueiredo. I am Portuguese. I've never left Portugal, was born here, been living a little bit from north to south, but I'm currently based out of a smaller city center, Portugal, called Coimbra, which is Portugal's university city and one of the oldest universities in the world also. And I work as a, right now, global design lead at a company called OutSystems, which is a visual coding and AI coding technology that is 25 years old. So if you think about the years that we've been thinking about this type of like realm of like speed up coding and things like that, it's a company that has been doing it for a long time. And yeah, I've been there for almost 10 years now, just developing brands, expanding what we do with design, trying to merge a bunch of realities from a bunch of different design teams, because we don't have centralized design practices. We have like departmental design groups, which is organization-wide, is really interesting to see how that goes. And outside of that, I am a man of many things. I'm not going to say talents. I just do a lot of stuff. I help run the Friends of Figma communities here in Portugal since 2020. Right now running out of Coimbra, but we actually work as a country group, so Friends of Figma Portugal. I also teach UX, UI classes in multiple schools and also as a freelance. And I used to also try and create a little podcast project that it's like on hold until I find time to do a second season and a third season. And you're probably going to see me going around doing a bunch of different stuff, depending on whatever the time of the year is, basically. But yeah, I have a background in brand and graphic design. I mostly work in brand nowadays, but I tend to call myself an everything designer because, especially in the last 10 years of my life, I design anything from stages to digital products to a bunch of different things that it touches multiple grounds, from physical objects like little plushies for my company, which is
that's so nice. That's
which
so
basically
cool.
is based on a design of the character that I did, which is called Neo, which is the company mascot, right?
That's amazing.
To something like designing full web experiences, apps, or events in the experience of events, which is really cool to design, where you plan not just how the event is going to happen, but also design how things go from, as you go from the door until you get to a stage, things on stage, you get out, the things that you experience. A little bit of all of that.
That's so cool, dude. I want to touch on so many things when you were speaking.
Yeah, sure.
So.
And about you?
Yeah, of course, about me. Let's get into that as well. I'm not as old as you. I'm a bit younger, so a little lower. I'm really passionate about creative, about design. I guess I was always. When you look back into my early childhood, I would used to get up like at 5 a.m., 4 a.m., just pick some papers and go paint. But I'm speaking to many people, and many people, when they were as a child, they were doing same thing. So maybe it's universal. When we're young, we're more creative. I didn't study design. I'm self-taught, but I studied business. So I have that kind of deep knowledge in that. And I got into design more by, I wouldn't say it as an accident, but I would say it more as a following a heart. I'm a person that loves to just do what he loves. I'm not going to do a thing that I don't find any meaning into it or fun. And one experience by another experience, I just got into design and into startups, into creating them. And yeah, I enjoy meeting people, constantly some creative things happening around. And 195 designers is one of them, just meeting people, having fun conversations. And yeah, here we are speaking.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's humble beginnings of ours.
So almost every single project starts. It's just someone just put it out into the world, and eventually you're going to start seeing it become into whatever it needs to become. 100%. I think that's always it.
Yeah, we're growing, and we don't know what tomorrow will bring, what kind of people we'll meet in the Figma config, what kind of ideas they will give us, and maybe we'll end up somewhere in the South America doing some design project. Who knows?
Why not? Amazing people out there.
For sure. And this brings me to the idea. We're speaking initially to the Figma about the bubble, and I'm so curious. UX design, product design is very Europe-centric, very America-centric, but less I hear about design, Figma, and the designers from South America, from Africa. And I'm just curious what is happening in there with the Figma and with the design.
The difficulty that I have with that is, yes, design in general, if you look at everyone that we meet in these type of spaces and events and whatnot, the training is still very much like the Swiss method-centric thingy, like the European-centric type of practices. But having people from multiple regions actually opens up a lot of interesting conversations, right? It doesn't mean that you're going to get too much out of the realm of what you're used to see UX, UI wise, I would say. But I can tell you that the good thing about a tool like Figma is that the way that it entered these markets was because it was accessible, which is not something that, for example, Adobe and other previously were. The earliest communities from Figma actually started in Nigeria, for example.
Really?
So yeah, so some of the first groups in Figma that actually started organizing themselves to organize events around Figma and teaching Figma and things like that back in 2018 or 2019 was in Nigeria because, well, Figma exists in a browser. It can be run on any computer. It could run on older machines a little bit better than Adobe products because of the way that it was cloud-based. So some people there just started using it, and it was really fun to see. I was very much into design Twitter back in the day, 2016 up until 2020, up until it became X. When Elon Musk got there, everyone was like, let's get at it. It's a big thing nowadays. Still, I don't go there because in principle, I don't want to support that. But you would notice, for example, that during that phase, there was this big, huge export of UX and UI designers from Nigeria. And it was kind of like weird, like, where does this investment come from? And then I remember being at the first config, and Dylan was doing the keynote, and on stage they referenced, yeah, our first ever user group guy that started organizing this is based in Nigeria, and actually brought him here today. It's like the first time that he's out of the country or something like that. And it was really cool to see that energy of actually having, and he was a design educator, right? He was teaching people how to do design with that tool. But at the same time, the influences that those cultures end up bringing into design are super interesting. Yeah, just in the 2 or 3 days that I was at Config, I met with people from the communities, or not just met, but rekindled some friendships and found people that I haven't seen in 2 or 3 years or something. And I had people from the Philippines, I had people from Korea, I had people from multiple countries of South America, Brazil. I think that we also had Peru. And all of these people, we just understood each other. Yeah, we needed to speak either English or Spanish to understand each other. Portuguese, the Brazilians understood the Portuguese, but they are the majority. We are the smallest group. There's like 3 Portuguese people there, and everyone else is Brazilian. It's, yeah, you guys are the majority. We know we are now the colony. But the fact is, like, there's a shared language between all of these people. And I feel like a lot of times, yes, we talk about how design is produced mostly within these realms of European and American influence. But I feel like the fact is the world needs more design than we think of. It's the same thing. The world needs more code than we think of. And when you think about who does all of that design and who does all of that code, many times they are actually smaller teams or teams that are local in every single region of the world. And I know, for example, that Brazil has a lot of experts in technology and creativity. Brazil has some of the biggest creatives in the world and greatest design agencies in the world, for example.
Wow.
But sometimes they're not really mentioned as much in the same realms as a London firm or a New York firm, right? But if you saw when the Rio Olympic Games happened, like the branding around it and everything, that was like spectacular. And it was like all done by a Brazilian agency, right?
Really?
So
I need to look up that.
Yeah, it's if you take a step back, you're going to notice creativity and great design exists almost everywhere in the world. It's just, we just have to look for it. You're always going to find creative and tech hubs in any part of the world. In Portugal, you have Lisbon. Maybe you have places like Singapore and Hong Kong, or even Tokyo has a bunch of tech hubs and a lot of cool people in Asia. Multiple cities in India have incredible designers. Africa, same thing, although Nigeria and I think South Africa right now are the 2 biggest hubs for design. And then South America is basically all over the place. So you start looking at that, and then the classic places that everyone talks about, almost never anywhere that it's outside of Europe is mentioned. But the fact is, a lot of people that actually work in these teams probably are from either Brazil or Middle East or whatever, right? You never know where the creatives are coming from, where the designer comes from. And what I've noticed with this global reach that the community in Figma has is it doesn't really matter. We're all just talking the same language. It's design, and design kind of works. And if you're not too strict with how you think about design, if you're open to new ideas, new concepts, and even new cultures, you're going to notice that you're going to find a lot of really cool insights from talking with everyone.
Yeah, this is so interesting. We are, after all, only humans. How a lot of talent moves around, and the talent is wrapped up in the company and wrapped up in the country. And then look into the country, then into the company, and we forget the whole creative team that built it. There is probably so many nationalities. It's just like by default normal.
Yeah, and of course, again, theoretically, there is still a lot of pillars of design that are more marketable, and they are more, let's say, connected to the reality of what it is to be a designer within a European realm or whatever. But the fact is, if you really just give it a little bit of time, start looking at how people are actually building things, you end up starting really fast to notice that there is a lot of really cool stuff being done out there, which comes out of these people that are thinking about their culture, thinking about their ways of like how they were raised and how that differs from everything else. Like every small thing, colors, patterns, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
For example, very recently, one of the biggest brand launches that I've seen, that felt, this is new, this is genuine, this is different, came out of Brazil because they did an Amazon rebrand for the cities of Amazon. So you get all of these like little like local brandings, but then an overall branding that feels very vibrant and colorful and not minimalistic at all and not tech related at all, but it's very digital anyways, and it's artistic. And that spirit of understanding our culture and turning it into something that then can be used as a design element exists everywhere around the world. We kind of just sometimes forget about it a little bit.
Was it the one with the river, the Amazon River kind of?
Exactly. Yeah, where the lettering did Amazon River. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it was so nice. I loved it.
Yeah, and it's done by, again, they got a bunch of local artists to do graphics for each region and things like that. And like, when you see projects like that, you really see that there are a gazillion ways to do things. There are a bunch of ways to express yourselves. But I give you a much closer to home example right now. Friends of Figma, as I said, it's a global community, right? And Figma is the one that leads us, and they just did a full rebrand for us. And they gave us the tools and they said, now make it yours. And every single chapter of Friends of Figma has a different expression of the same brand that matches the reality of their city or their country. So if you look at ours in Portugal, we use Portuguese styles and local regional figures and illustrations. If you look at the Bosnia Herzegovina guys, they use runes and a few other elements. If you look, I think there's an Italian city, I think it's Palermo. I need to double check. They have these really cool, like with the seahorse symbols and things like that. If you look at Brazilian ones, there's ones that are using tiles to replicate the tiles in the streets of Ipanema. There's a bunch of really cool stuff out there. And everyone has their own version of how a brand can express based on their local culture. There was a couple of Indian projects also there that were really cool because they also worked with these intricate patterns from their cultures. That's amazing. And all of us can still use the same logo to sign. All of us can still use the same color palettes. It's just like we're expressing through different symbols that are becoming stickers that everyone can just do and use and share. And that is really an amazing experience in space to be in, I would say, because it opens a lot of your mind to different, not only conversations, but also spaces that you can feel like.
Yeah. Be an observer of different things that happen, not in the bubble of yours, but observing the whole.
I honestly think that it goes beyond. The cool thing that I like about the communities here is you go from observer to participant. Everyone is open to share with you what they are doing, right? You don't have the same energy as you had before, where everyone was like, Figma is like open source. It's like GitHub for designers. Everyone can just remix their work and whatnot. It's like, that still is there. Not as much, but it's still there. So it feels more participative than just consumable. You're not just observing, you're actually listening, which is active, and it's not just passive. And then you're engaging the conversation and being part of it. You can work with someone from another culture, get what they are doing, or duplicate their work and make your own version for your culture, or try to participate in a conversation that makes it multicultural, for example. So in a world where we align ourselves in the medium, like where we try to find the center that everyone can agree on, these realities actually show us that medium isn't the solution. It's more about the having multiple paths and multiple ways to actually communicate. I don't remember. I feel like Figma as a tool evolved to a point where, for example, the tools in the community have lost a little bit of that charm. But I remember just in the last 5 or 6 years, I did collaborative projects all around the world with people where I literally just launched the Figma file, and there was a guy that was like, I'm trying to make a library in a Figma file where I put design documents, like design books that everyone likes and whatnot. And I'm like, dude, let's do it. Let's make it into a collaborative file, open it to the world, and see how many people put it there. There was a point where we had about 200 people dropping their books at the same time. That file lives somewhere around in the world. The guy reached out to me on LinkedIn the other day and was like, yeah, that was really cool. That was super fun. And, just it's participative, and it doesn't have to do with the tool only. It has to do with the spirit that the community was built upon. And everyone keeps expanding on that, so that you feel like that still goes down the same path in the long term.
Yeah, it's so interesting with the community, how it develops and grows. And I feel like with the current state of the Figma community, it's so big that you might lose some part of it, but that it's being solved by having these independent communities like Portugal community. And then you kind of have, again, your smaller circle. But again, it's not as global as before. When you connect outside of your bubble with the whole world, I guess it's a bit harder because there's so many people now.
Yeah, but I don't think that has to do with design, with Figma communities, for example, specifically. I think that actually has to do with design as a whole. We have very little own channels. Let's put it like that. The design has lived in tools like Behance and Dribble for a while. But that was, again, passive communication. You show your work and people know that you exist there and they comment, but you don't really talk with each other. And then design Twitter was a really good thing, because if 10 years ago you would ask anyone from Portugal who I was, probably no one knew, but I had more friends in San Francisco, in Canada, than I had in Portugal, because design Twitter, basically, I got into that circle, right? I met those people, and we were more actively engaging in conversations every day. Nowadays, I start to feel that again on Threads, for example. Yeah, but it's because there's a small crew of people that we start communicating with each other, and you see that circular communication. But that also exists on other tools like Blue Sky. There used to be the guys that were doing Read CV, they had posts.cv, and that was literally the design, creative and design social media space. And it was working really well, and people were having good conversations there. And you felt like you were meeting peers from all around the world again, like you did with Design Twitter. So it's about spaces that people can share, and you're going to find them in multiple ways. No one is ever like, there's not going to be a global community nowhere. That doesn't exist. When you pass a certain threshold of amount of people, you know that you can't engage with them all. So you just start creating your small circle, and you enjoy the fact that you already have a bunch of people that know you and you know them, and that's fine. And that doesn't mean you can't meet new people, right? Like adding into the conference like Config, or coming, for example, we have a small conference here in Portugal called Layers. Every time that we get new speakers, every time that we start a conversation trying to figure out companies that want to be involved, like, you're expanding that network of people, and some of them will be part of your community. Others will temporarily be part of your community, and that's fine. That's how communities are built, and that's how they will have a life. And some of them will end, some of them will last longer, and that's fine. It's just the channels that we have right now. There's not like a unified place where people talk about design. That disappeared a long time ago. And why?
You can finish, and then I will ask.
No, it's like we went from being a very closed class of professionals. If you think about design classically, where the concept of masters and people that were like leaders in the industry, and then everyone else was like followers and trying to learn what they did. And then we went through a phase where early 2010s up until early 2020s, everyone was like, fuck that. Design should be open source. Everyone should know everything. We should share and whatnot. And you went through that phase to the point where now that's the standard, and no one cares about it anymore. And everyone just thinks about design in that way. In our spaces, the others, that existed from the before, they are still living in their own spaces. So what happened was there was a break-in community. You created a new space of communities with tools like Figma, Canva, Procreate, that were the new generation of tools, DaVinci for video, whatever you want to call them. And those tools led to creation of new spaces. Just because it is easier to join around the tool than it is, for example, around the concept of what is design, what is the professional networks that we actually need, what actually should we do. There's huge discussions for 30 plus years at this point about designer unions and if design should be a class of work like engineers are, like all of that. But people don't as easily get into that realm of conversation as they do into, oh, we actually use this tool, so we do similar work, so it's easier for us to meet around these realms. And I truly believe that we lost a lot of those spaces because of the fragmentation of these social networks. But at the same time, that happened for everyone, not just for us. So we're not so special in that way. It's just that we need to figure out what actually can we engage again to create these communities and keep on the conversation. A lot of the conversations right now are latched to the AI communities, which I don't think it's productive. It's productive to a certain point, but then you need to think about things outside the realm of technology. And that's where spaces like actually Friends of Figma sometimes allows us to do. There's other communities that are created around user experience, creative design. I met a lot of them because we in Portugal try to meet and actually collaborate with other communities other than ours so that we actually expand groups and mix people up. But those conversations only happen if you really are interested in not just, again, being focused on your little bubble, right? So
if you initiate and are open.
Which is difficult for a lot of designers because a lot of designers are actually introverts. Creative directors and everything like that are salespeople, but designers, nah. The most designers that I know are introverts, and they are more focused on their craft and on what they are building than they actually are in having the conversations, because they just want to be left alone and doing their thing at the end of the day.
Are you an introvert or extrovert designer?
I fluctuate. Figma used to have a little sticker called the ambivert, which is someone who can actually work really well as an extrovert, but needs recharge time and act as an introvert for a long time. I feel like that's just the definition of an extrovert with a battery. But yeah, I feel like I would say that I'm more in the realm of extrovert, but I understand the introverts. I don't feel like being an introvert makes you not capable of communication, but it makes you less, how can I put this? Available for bullshit. I guess that's it. Like introverts tend to be great to create real connections with, because you're actually trying to work with this setup in where these people are, their time needs to be well spent with other people, right? It needs to be something that actually they feel like they are connected with someone. So introverts usually are great at communities because it's just a bunch of introverts talking with each other and meeting people that you actually like. So if you don't like them, you kind of just disconnect, right? I feel like this is a overgeneralization. I'm not saying that this is what happens everywhere, whatever, but I feel like that got a little bit of that great energy, because spaces that if you're an introvert, you're probably going to want a safer space, a more, let's call it a cozy space where you can meet with your friends, right? It doesn't need to be loud and everyone's shouting and whatnot. Yeah. And then there's people like me where I love being with these people because I can probably still have conversations with them and be a little bit louder, but I am not exaggeratedly trying to occupy any space. But
yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Do you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert, by the
way? Probably similar to you, in between. For me, it's really easy, and I love it to go up to a random person and just start speaking instantly on the street. But as well, after a while of speaking, I need to have time for myself and to relax and to recharge. So yeah, it's in between of that.
There you go.
I'm curious about the community that you have at the moment. It was, I think you mentioned Friends of Figma. What kind of people it attracts? If we could put it into numbers, is it 50-50 introverts and extroverts? Or is the majority of them, as you mentioned, are introverts and there's some extroverts?
I would say it's 80-20 actually. So I feel like mostly because of the profession that it is, again, I feel like a lot of designers are not extroverts. Yes, there are extrovert designers, but that doesn't mean that they are all. I feel like most designers are people who are focused, again, on doing their own thing. And that tends to be a realm where introverts thrive. You can focus on your creative projects and then you don't need to collaborate too much. Nowadays, design is much more collaborative, but there's a lot of still like old school practices where you're just in your corner doing your thing, and like that's great for an introvert, right? They can be creative and they can build their own thing and like whatever. But I feel like, yeah, we're probably 80-20. It's just the introvert extrovert scale is such like something that black and white has never been the best place to work it. It's in the gray area, and I feel like we have a bunch of gray area people. But it depends a lot on the country and the leaders too. And that's another thing. If you look at these communities, whoever starts them sets the tone. I like to think about how we started ours as like an open space for everyone to feel welcome, and that we just don't want people to feel like we're a tool community, we're a design community. We do a lot of efforts to do things around, let's bring people from different realms of design or different realms of work that interact with design. Let's do events like, again, we did yesterday with the whole little building zines and be creative and artistic without actually doing just, okay, let's see how to make a prototype. Oh, let's see how to use AI to create products. That's not the interesting conversation to have at the end of the day. At the end of the day, the interesting conversation to have is, are the things that we're actually building useful? Does AI actually change what we do as creatives and designers? Do we know how to collaborate with other roles? Do those roles like to do the job that we do or not? Those are much more interesting conversations. And for example, I feel like I set that tone, not just me. In the beginning, it was me and another guy, Flavio. And then the community evolved. And nowadays it's like, there's 6 leads and there's almost 10 or 12 people in the community here. And everyone has their little different energy.
Yeah.
In Lisbon now we have this guy Francisco that I love to death, but like he is so hyped up. He just wants to make things happen. He is always like eager to make, and you can feel that like higher energy in his events because it's him. And he is not like an overly expensive person or anything like that. He is just like very friendly and always trying to be friends with everyone, and he wants to make things happen. And you can see how that makes it work. And same with our Porto community now, that also has new leads, and each one has a different perspective on how things can be done, and they bring different energies. And it's like, it's really cool. So if you ever do the exercise, and I haven't been able to actually attend a Friends of Figma event outside of Portugal yet, but I want to. But just seeing the recordings of their events, because everyone keeps doing little videos and whatnot and photos, you can immediately tell this community is different. This community has a different energy. This community works in a different way. We love, for example, our friends from Barcelona, and in Portugal, all of our events are medium to small. This maybe a regular event, maximum people is 60 to 70, which is a good number, but it's not huge. In Barcelona, they keep saying, yeah, we love to do our events, but our minimum number of people needs to be 150 per event because we have 300 to 500 people wanting to go to our events, each event. That is a different dynamic. That is a different type of crowd. That is a different type of networking that you do in spaces like that. And I'm betting that they probably never had what I had yesterday, which was a workshop with 3 people and me as running the workshop. And that's still very amazing for my community.
100%.
You get a little a quiet moment where everyone is working together and meeting each other, and you actually create real connections in the room, and everyone gets to meet each other. That's amazing. That's not a bad thing. It's just that you don't always need the numbers. You need the right people focused on the right things. And introvert extroverts as a scale helps understand that the gray areas really are where things live. But it's, I'm never gonna think about a community as being, even if it's around the same tool, as a unified unit. Everyone thinks about these things differently, so they build differently also around them.
First, you're bringing out different kind of personalities into the one space. You give options and possibilities to different energy people to and feel good in that, and it's very nice. I really like this way of viewing it, not doing one thing but always changing, always thinking of some ideas and trying it out and attracting different people. I liked as well that you are not thinking in your mindset that only 3 people came to my event, it sucks, but you're like, it was very good, we connected more deeply. And I think it's a good attitude to have, like you learn from any kind of experience.
And even like, for example, a measure of success for a lot of people is growth. Mine has never been about growth. Every single thing that I build projects wise has always been about community and actually getting human connection and people to actually know each other. Or the only growth that I want is grow your group of friends, grow your radius of influence, grow your network, whatever you want. Yes, that's you.
Yeah.
The community itself doesn't need to be huge. It just needs to be the space where you feel like you can do a little bit of that. Our conference that we do every year here in Portugal, it's a smaller conference called Layers. As I was setting up the conference, and because I was also aligning with everyone else, said, we will never do more than 250 people. Never. If we don't want it to be like too small, ideally it would always be like 150, 200, 250 max, because that's a really good number to have enough audience to make an event dynamic, but still allow everyone to meet in different group of friends and not feel like we are overly focusing on budget and things like that, because it's not too expensive, and allows everyone to have a good time. Yes, the organizers always have more stress. The organizers always have to think about a bunch of stuff, and they probably are not going to be watching the talks until they see the recordings, stuff like that. But I'm really 100% sure that if I did the conference as a bigger conference, it wouldn't have the same spirit where we encourage people to meet each other. We kind of we might not, I don't know, be able to offer lunch, but say, hey, here's a bunch of lunch spots around. Why don't you guys find a friends group and go together? Stuff like that. Yeah. And you can create a really nice dynamic with that type of energy. So when we do this type of events, when we do these type of things, at least from my perspective, and now again, I am not the only one leading the community. Now I am a part of a team, which is amazing. And everyone is the same. There's no leader, which is also another cool thing. I'm just the senior guy, but I'm trying to enable everyone else to lead their own little chapter and run it how they want to. You get different experiences from all of that. And the community morphs into different types of realms. But the one thing that stays core to how we do communities here is the same. Everyone just wants people to be in a good community and feel good about being part of this and feel engaged and happy. None of us is getting actual money out of this, and we still do a monthly meeting. We literally take 1 hour, sometimes 2, because we're distracted chatting with friends, and just talk about the shit that we want to do about the community and the things that we want to build and how cool it is and what went wrong and what went better. If we had a good experience, we talk about it and say what it was good. If we had a bad experience, we talk about it and say what it was bad. And it kind of it feels more natural because there's no expectation of profit. There's no expectation of massive growth. It's just, everyone is having a lot of fun creating a space for other people.
There is two questions that comes from your conversation about the first. You mentioned that you are in the community of Figma with friends, then with Layers. Then you also before mentioned that you did a podcast. And for me, it feels that you have a deeper meaning for yourself, why you are so into building something for the people.
No one built anything for me. I always say this, like growing up as someone in a part of the country, Portugal isn't very design prone, okay? Design in Portugal as a category, professional category, is fairly recent. Yes, there are always creatives and artists, but the concept of designers is fairly new. I'm not going to say that I'm first generation or anything like that, but I am probably first massive generation or whatever you want to call it, second, maybe, right? You're talking about like as a professional class, there have always been graphic designers in Portugal, but there was not a massive number. And like when I started studying, for example, my course was one of the first ones in Portugal for multimedia design. And it had 10 years at that point. That's not a big time for a professional class to actually develop, right? Like, and now I know that every year in Portugal, we are training about 10,000 designers or something like that. Or I don't think it's that big of a number, honestly, but there's a number that is close enough to 10,000 or something like that between all courses. And you have product designers, industrial designers, graphic designers. 10 years ago, that was not the case. Everyone was just either a graphic or a multimedia designer or maybe a comms designer.
Yeah.
And the notions of what design was like so low that most people thought about designers, and a lot of them still do, especially if they don't really work in that realm, as they're the guys who draw the little cartoons and shit like that. That was the culture that I was raised with. So I didn't really have a lot of people teaching me what design was. I didn't really have a lot of people help me understand that there's better ways to do things. And then when I went into studying, I can say that I learned a lot with the course that I took. I love my colleagues. I like some teachers. I hated some others, But what I've learned more was actually by doing a lot outside and going and being someone that was actively engaging and building with others. And so that energy, that realm of working with others and engaging with others was always there. And I really wanted to just do my best to be more open and actually start teaching others what no one taught me. When I started working, I was a freelance for the first few years of my career. I actually started working right as I was in college to try and get some professional experience. So as I was studying, I was doing small gigs with restaurants, students associations, friends projects. I created a magazine with a couple of friends. Or no, I joined, but I was one of the 3 founders of that magazine. It was like a music, arts, and culture magazine that lasted 7 years back in 2012. And that also was like a huge school for me of how you can create and find community in the music and arts and culture space, which is a space that only lives because of communities. Because if you don't really have a community, basically, or you don't have a way to self-sufficiently last longer than one project or something.
Yeah.
And I was always led to those spaces, to like what communities are and whatnot. And I started those projects. For example, I started that project in 2012. I started working out of college in 2013 as a freelance. And in 2016, that's when I got the work that I do now, or I started working at the company that I'm working now, OutSystems. At the same time, I also decided that I wanted to organize concerts with So Far Sounds. I don't know if you know what So Far Sounds is, but it's basically secret concerts.
Really?
People organize, you organize secret concerts. And it can happen. I can organize the secret concert in your living room and you get 20 people sitting on the floor listening to it in your living room. And that was really cool. And that energy of gathering people around something and whatnot. And when I started getting into more of that in design, I always felt, no one taught me anything like this. I had to very hardly learn my value. I had to get into a market where my job that I got in 2016, my title was junior designer. Within 7 months, I became a senior designer. Why? Because my manager said, you are not a junior, but we have a contract to comply with, and you're going to be a senior as soon as I can. I didn't know my worth because no one in the industry actually taught me what the worth was of the knowledge that I brought. I've been working, including for my family, since I was 15, so I had a lot of seniority on dealing with customers and a bunch of stuff that no one told me that I actually had. So when I started to work, outside of my freelance realm and valuing myself, I was like, okay, why didn't no one ever taught me? How can I actually learn how to teach these to others, for example? And it really led me a lot to how this basically would become the spaces that I thrive, which is I want to be for others what no one was for me. I want to be some form of catalyzer to make this work for everyone. And if I don't exist in the end of the day in this space, but the space exists, that's my goal. I want to create spaces. I want to create opportunities for people to learn more and be more open and share what they know about design, the industry, and whatnot, than just me actually earning a lot out of it. What I earn is the good community. If there's a good community, then I'm super happy and I can go and find other spaces where I can exist, and that's fine.
Is it the main thing that brings meaning to your life at the moment?
It's that wouldn't be the only thing. I've been considered a workaholic by a lot of people because, again, I do a lot of these things that I really love, but I don't want to think about it like bringing meaning to my life. It's just part of bringing meaning. My meaning of when my life comes a lot more about the mundane things, the people that I love, the spaces that I live in and enjoy, and even the ones that I would love to live on and I don't enjoy. This is a good purpose, and I'm going to keep focusing on that. I feel like at the end of the day, and when I started other projects like the podcast that you were talking about, the podcast and that project entirely is called Design is for Everyone. Yeah. Like the title is simple. Design is for everyone, because my idea is the way that we designers tend to look at the world is with a critical eye that focus on making everything better. So if everyone has even a little bit of that skill set trained in school, for example, that means that everyone looks at the world with more intent. Everyone looks at the world in a way that this is more critical. One, because there's a very hard thing that is happening in society right now, which is the loss of critical thinking, and everyone just accepts that reality is what it is, and designers don't. Designers by default are curious people, critical people about reality. And two, it's the ability to actually look at the world as a designed world, as a thing that humans and societies built that can be changed, and it's not unchangeable, right? And that insight has led me to keep going and doing what I do, which is, even if it's in smaller things like learning that you can actually build your own tools, that's making you think about the world more critically and actually just not expecting that the reality that you live in is going to be the same, because that's how it is. That's how it is. It's the worst sentence in the world. Things are not how they are. Things are how they were designed to be, even if it's by nature, but they were designed to be. So maybe someone can design them in a different way.
That's super interesting. And you mentioned that designers are one of the groups of people that I cited myself down even not to remember the laws of, I don't even read what.
No worries. There's a loss of critical thinking and design.
Exactly. The loss of critical thinking. It was so interesting because I never thought about this topic, but how do you explain it? Why did you had a thought of this?
It depends a lot on your reality and the people that you live with. But if you talk about classic internet factoid and things that people talk about, boomers on Facebook is a really good way to talk about people that lost touch with reality. Concept of boomers on Facebook, people sharing memes of nowadays, things change every week or so, but in a year ago in the US specifically, there was this weird ass thing with AI images with Jesus. And there was like shrimp Jesus and Jesus with crocodiles and stuff like that. And it was like, people lost the ability to think critically about those things. Like, why are you sharing this? Oh, it's so funny. Huh?
Yeah.
Why is it funny? I don't know. It's funny. That's how it is. And that's how it is. That conformity of reality and not being able to think critically about what's being said, it's really fearful in an age where reality is not real. And that's the way that it is. If you talk about the tools that we use and the things that we generate and whatnot, 10 years ago was already really hard because there were people already doing weird, technical, interesting stuff. Deepfakes was already a thing that was coming to life. There's this Jordan Peele video of him dubbing Obama and using his voice. That one is a classic example of, if you don't have enough critical thinking, you probably would think that what Obama said there was real. But people get fooled by even simpler things. Videos that are cut so that the words in sequence sounded a different thing. That happens politically everywhere. But it can be even simpler things. If something in your life is creating friction, so it's harder for you to actually do it, why not change it? If there's something in your home that maybe if you build something different would save you a lot of time, would make your life easier, why don't you do it? And a lot of people don't think, why don't I? A lot of people just think that's the way it is. And I was raised in a family of workers, people who work hard, they work a lot. They are owners of a small textile factory, and everyone in that factory, from my parents who are leaders and to the workers that are on the machines, all of them are workers. None of them are critical thinkers. None of them are, or they have some critical thinking here and there. It's always very reduced and very like, maybe we can do a small tweak. It's never, maybe we should actually change the ways that we do things. And there needs to be a bunch of other conversations about moral codes and ethics around this, because the biggest issues that we have right now is some of the people that learned that the world can be changed and differentiated and designed are leaders in the industry, and they actually got a lot of people that are using critical thinking to do arguably bad things to the world, right? So why not arm everyone that actually can do good things to the world with the same type of abilities? And the thing about our class of professionals is that design is by default about problem solving. So problem solving demands critical thinking, right? So and everything in design can be framed as problem solving. The concept of design, and that is the whole conversation around language. Design comes from the word in Latin that it's designare, which means to mark out or to delineate or to basically give designium, give meaning. And we give meaning to people's ideas. We plan out how they should be created, be it I need to communicate something. My problem is I have an issue with communication. So you have a communications designer or a graphic or visual designer to create a material that communicates what you want to communicate. I need to solve a problem with a product. You have a product designer. We are literally problem solvers. We are critical thinkers that look at reality with the ways that reality can be designed and can be changed. And we then apply that to whatever realm we are working. That's why I like to call myself an everything designer, because people will always have to have some sort of filter down to what a designer is, because problem solver, people don't want to call it a designer because they always think of design in their realm of reality. people working in textile think about designers as fashion designers or graphic designers, probably. They don't think about product designers. People in the industry building machines, they think about industrial designers as designers. Everyone has a concept of what a designer is, because a designer is a problem solver in the realm of where they are. It's just that they don't want to think about it like that, because there's these old concepts. It's like the profession as a designer is very young, but the concepts of design are old as fuck, basically.
Yeah.
That's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
And designare as a word in Latin actually comes during the Renaissance period, with people that were like masters of Renaissance trying to figure out how to talk about what they were doing. So what people that nowadays we call inventors, they were basically designers. It's giving ourselves a little bit too much importance in the world sometimes. And I like to think about it this way. That's why I say design is for everyone. Everyone can have a little bit of this in themselves. The best engineers, the best scientists, the best creatives, all of them have this ability to think about the world critically. It's just that the concepts that they think about the world critically nowadays would be called design. They are designing the world. They are planning what they are about to do. They are thinking critically. They are looking at the problem, and they are trying to find solutions about it. They are designing outputs just in whatever field they are, mathematicians, scientists. So it's just that happens that some people are really good at being professionals at that in certain areas. And those areas don't really have a title like scientist. But for example, if you want to design a home, you have an architect, which is a designer. That's it. If you have to the point where the concept of building foundations or designing the foundations of a home became such a thing that an architect is a type of designer that can be applied then to other fields, and you have systems architects.
True.
So it's just it's a language thing at the end of the day. It's a nomenclature thing, but the fact is design by default is this thing that actually is useful for almost everyone's lives. And so as I think of this, and I could spend hours talking about this, there's a lot of really interesting thing that happens when you join a bunch of people that actually are critical thinkers in a room and they work together. But then you also have to be very critical, and this is where I get usually with especially the tech design community, about actually if they are aware of what they are trying to solve, and if they are aware of the reality. Because if you have a bunch of critical thinkers in the same space, it's very obvious that the bias goes into people who think that the problems are clear, and then actually the problems are either unclear or they're completely different problems because they haven't talked with a human being that isn't as critical in 6 months or so. So yeah, there's a lot of really cool things that can be said about this, but that's why I'm so eager to create these spaces and to force the conversations, make people talk about things that are not just the same thing. And especially, for example, in product design, that became a massive UX UI product design became a massive market in the last 10 years. The tendency has been to start to normalize the ideas that like there's no critical thinking, there's just systems and builds and things are following the line, and you need some sort, again, friction, problems to throw at them, make them think about the world differently. And in the communities that we run, we always go to the next problem. When everyone else is focusing on AI, we are focusing on collaboration, creativity, and things that are actually problems that will outlast the technology. When everyone else is thinking about how to build sometimes a design system, we've went through that problem before so many times that now we are focusing, okay, how do you bring your design system to the next level, where it's conversations of taste, which is now the biggest keyword in AI industry, for example, or be it about simply conversations about humanity and accessibility. All of those things have a space, and they need to just be pushed back and forth, and you need to bring them all into the table. And there's going to be new themes every day. It's just not allowing ourselves to be less critical and not allowing ourselves to be stuck in the same loop time and time again.
Do you feel that designers are maybe losing as well a critical touch, since the world is moving as well into that kind of thing?
I feel like we commoditize design as a service. So we have a bunch of people that are designers by title, but not designers by heart.
Also, art is another type of thing.
No, I'm sorry. Heart as in like by heart, your heart. Maybe it sounds a little bit different. I know art, it's another thing, but like the thing is, critically in the past, you had artists that were acting as designers, and artists tend to be people who have a more critical point of view of the world. Yes.
Really?
But you don't think artists are as critical?
I'm not sure. I haven't met probably as much artists as you do. From my experience, I feel like what I observe on the internet at least, that
Mhm.
creative people, designers like graphic designers, they tend to not know as much about problem solving of maybe business and in general problem solving as
Yeah.
people in the opposite side of design, product design, UX design.
Yes, but if
And
you ask them about societal problems, I'm going to tell you that most of them are probably radical socialists or something like that.
yeah,
And that's the thing. If you start thinking about the problems that a lot of businesses are trying to solve, they are trying to solve a lot of those problems under the scope of capitalism. But a lot of artists are people who think about societal problems and not about business problems.
that's true.
They think
That's
about elements of community, elements of things of your day to day. So if you throw them problems that become business problems, you're going to get a more critical point of view, because for once they probably are going to be against some of the capitalist type of thoughts. And those people are usually actually really good for the business, because they basically are an insight on how to go around the brain of those people, which is really bad for those people, but a lot of them are hired because of that. But that's the thing. You went to a phase where we were mass producing product designers. And as we talk about, and this is very critical, as we talk about the fear that people have right now that AI is going to replace their job, it's because you produced a bunch of people that are considered themselves designers, but they are basically systems replicators. They are technicians that basically know how to do the same process again and again.
yeah,
And you need those people anyways. You need people who are actually really good at their. A designer, even in graphic worlds, doesn't exist with a guy in the print shop that knows how to turn their designs into an amazing print with the right techniques. That's a technician. That's someone who says executing a technical skill to turn things into a final product. But designers in the core way of thinking, people who actually have this ability of thinking about systems, building them out, finding solutions, they can sometimes be also seen as the technicians. And the problem was, I feel like the mass of the last 10 to 15 years of people that we trained on UX UI, on product design and everything, there was this push to, you guys should follow always the same process. You guys should always do the same things. You guys should build a design system. And every time that the people come to these events, every time that we have a conversation, the more interesting conversation that you get out of it is, are you actually designing, or are you actually just replicating what someone taught you that was the correct process?
And I would also add to this that design by the word, it means, at least to majority of the people, something towards art. But by designers or product designers and the system have taught them not to create, but follow the path, follow the majority of the times.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean these processes are bad. It's just that you need to understand that how these processes adapt. And the biggest issue that we have in the industry of product design is you don't have a lot of great design leaders, mostly because, and that's not just for design, almost everything in tech, it's really hard to find a good organization with great leaders, because what happens is most people are pushed into leadership jobs even if they are not good leaders.
That's true.
Because there's no other path. And design specifically is an area where that suffers a lot. If you think about career growth, an engineer is going to have options. Some engineers are okay, and there's companies that know that they will be individuals that are highly skilled and they will be highly paid, but they will never lead a team. They will just be part of some team at the end of the road. Designers, they either go from junior to associate or mid-level, and then you have seniors. And then once you get to seniors, the extra paths are either replication of engineerings, where you have leads, staff designers, and whatever, or you have leaders. But even those paths, almost every single company just knows that a designer, the moment that they are a designer, a senior designer, they either are a senior designer or they are a leader or a marketing or a creative director. The growth is directly into leadership roles. And a lot of people don't actually know how to lead, but they are pushed into that realm. And of course, if you get leaders that don't know how to lead, you get basically, again, you fall into the loop of individual contributors, people who are basically trying to just do their job, trying to make other people just do their job. And you don't get, again, critical thinking. You don't get growth out of these teams. You don't get ways of adjusting to these new tools, or being forced by other leadership and then being disillusioned by the work. Design, professional design, be it graphic, product, whatever, is a class where a lot of people don't go beyond the senior role and they give up and become other professions after a few years. A lot of them become artists, a lot of them become handyman and other interesting, more hands-on professions. Some of them start selling their own products. They become freelancers, just doing their own thing, because there is no actual growth plans for what these people are in the industry.
But what would you say if you would be in a god, for example? let's say broad, what kind of path would you make for fellow human designers to advance forward?
I feel like we have ways to use technically, if we talk about design technically, and here's the thing, with AI, design in technology specifically, design and engineering are basically going to become a single path. There's no way to put it any differently. Developers and designers are going to start mixing up in similar roles. So the way that some companies are already using engineering paths for individual contributors can be used as a template for now, but we can start looking into if there's ways of how these design roles actually evolve a little bit differently. Titles, I don't know what titles are come. That's organic. I don't want to put it out there. It's just understanding what the role of seniority is, and if people actually need new titles or if they need new structures to actually become, or at least feel that like they are being valued above what they are. Because the default is really that. Most companies just think about designers and go like, okay, you're a senior designer. Yeah, you're a senior designer. There's no evolution beyond this point. So there's no notion of, okay, what if I am a senior designer, but like senior projects designer, senior whatever design. That is a title. Maybe it's a big difference, but it does a difference to focus on what they are focusing on and gives them a little bit of more safety, gives them a little bit more space to grow, a feeling that they actually are becoming something else. Because if not, the only other option is like, yeah, okay, I'm happy to go and be the leader of the team lead, woohoo. And then they get there and it's like, yeah, guys, do your job. Yeah. Because I don't have the capacity to be political with other leaders, because I don't want to be that. I want to be the guy who just does my job. So I'm going to make you do the same. And that's really critical. That leaves you burned out really fast. That's the first thing. And even for people like me, who I've been happy as a design leader and I've been growing into that path, it's really hard because you're so used to be the person who just does your thing, who tries to solve the problems and give the output. But then once you get into these type of conversations, you need to be more business minded. Then you need to be design minded sometimes. It's good to have that balance, but it's not easy to do so. But I feel like it just means that people need to figure out how to understand that career levels, one, are not everything. That's the one thing. Career levels are just corporate structure to allow you to understand how growth goes and to understand how to add value to this infrastructure where these people actually could be heard. Sometimes you don't need a designer to be more than a senior designer, but maybe that senior designer needs to work with senior leadership. And that makes a difference, right? If you have a CEO that needs someone who can turn their vision into a reality, I wouldn't put it past any other industry to just say, in the office of the CEO, in the staff of the CEO, there's a designer, because it's the person who can translate the CEO's ideas into something that others can consume. Because many times these people are thinking in their own mind, they're visionaries, they're trying to create their own lingo, but they don't really go beyond that point. A lot of the CEOs around the industry don't see the teams that they have around them, but many of them have copywriters, they have script writers, they have a bunch of people that are turning what they want to think into things that others can consume. So you're basically creating a team around a leadership role that it's turning whatever those people are trying to sell to the world into consumable points. That's a really cool job to have in an organization that is more tech. Or you just need to understand the value of them and make them feel valued by having promotions that don't really change the title, but makes them feel more valued. Give them more free time, give them more ownability of projects, stuff like that. Because at the end of the day, on most organizations, designers are services, and services are basically owned by other people, right? Like they tell you, do this and you do that. And if you push back, people get mad. So just being in a company like I've been, where by default, the thing is, if something doesn't feel right, ask why, that makes you feel more valued by default, right? Because you can always push back, but not everyone is like that. And most organizations don't really think like that. But
I want to look into this from a little bit different standpoint. When you are growing up in the company, it, as you say, puts you into different titles, into different roles slowly, so that you grow up and become a leader. But what if it starts earlier? And it starts earlier in the beginnings, in the childhood, probably, how you grow up around, what your parents taught you like. What if you would be a father, or you maybe are a father already?
I'm not. Yeah.
But let's say if you would be, how would you, or I'm not sure, it's as well a question, would you consider teaching your child to have a character to being a leader, so that from the early days he would have a habit or in his character that it would be easier for him to grow up and maybe in 30 years to become a leader?
I don't think that we should force childs to think about that or even put them in that position. I think you can give them own ability, so make them responsible for what they do. I think you can give them tools to develop their creativity, their personality, but trying to shape a childhood in that way, it's the direct path to creating pressure and creating issues that person is going to have to spend their entire life trying to solve. I really think that the best way to actually deal is just give them space to develop, the promoting good behaviors and letting them know when the behaviors are bad, and just instill them with whatever you feel like the values you have are. And that's going to work for good or worse. If you're a Nazi, you're creating a Nazi. Yeah. That's what it is. But the fact is, I don't think that forcing or trying to create ways to instill leadership into a child is a good thing. I feel like the best thing that you can actually instill in any of them is just make them more human and accepting of everyone and just creative. Feel creativity, the engine of creativity being, and that maybe creates the best leaders, right? If you allow someone to be creative and don't tell them that, oh, what you're doing is always, no, that's not nice or whatever, just give them space to develop. Maybe give your feedback, but be constructive about it. And I feel like that actually builds better people to become leaders in the future, for example, than actually trying to figure out how to give them tools to become a better leader. No, I just want to give them tools to become less bounded by a better person and less bounded by the concepts of what, for example, my society expected of me, right? Oh, go and take a degree and do and this. No, do your path, find your way. Yes, you're going to have to deal with reality. Yes, you're going to get to a point where maybe you don't have any money and you need to do whatever. But at the same time, if you're being raised with space to not be criticized by your creativity to the point where you're being, yes, you can still give your feedback, but not say, yeah, what you're doing is crap, because what, a 3-year-old is going to be a magician? No, they are having fun learning, and then eventually they'll become someone. Just push them to become the best version of themselves, and that's it. Nothing else.
Yeah, it's a good perspective to look from as well into the leadership and as well childhood, just growing. And I see that our time is coming to the close, but I really love speaking with you. And I just want to ask you if you do have more time or if you would like to speak more.
I don't have more time, unfortunately. I have a little bit of a close call right now. But if you ever want to speak another occasion, my door is always open for this type of conversations, and I am happy to keep going and having these chats.
That's cool. So I do have a question for a closing. It's left by another person from the previous episode. And this is an experiment that I'm doing every episode, something totally different than before. I never done that, but I saw it in the diary of CO, thought it cool. So here we are. And the previous person left a question, which is, how would you imagine design sector will be in 2 years?
In shambles. That's the biggest difficulty that we're going to have right now is that people still think about design as many different things. So I don't think the design sector actually has a well-established structure. I think that most people think about the design sector as design for product. And I think that one specifically is going to be in shambles because it already is. But at the same time, I also think that in 2 years, the people that will be better adapting to all this change are going to be the designers. Again, because of critical thinking. Again, because they are early adopters on almost every single technology that exists in the world. They are people who play around and test out much more than most. So I think that they will most easily start to adjust and understand. But I also think that if we don't do anything about making these new technologies more human, because we keep saying, oh, yes, AI and like chat and interface and like natural language. And then I'll ask you if your natural language is the same in your native language is in English. And then I'll ask you if your natural language is the same if you're a Gen Z or if you're a millennial or if you're a Gen Alpha or a boomer or whoever. Or a Gen X. Let's not forget those guys. They always get forgotten. Like, language is not stable. So there's a lot of factors there, but I think that like design is going to be in shambles, trying to figure out what it is. We're now getting down that road. A lot of us think that we're already there. I think that most of the world hasn't caught up. I think that's why I think it's in 2 years they're going to be like that. But hey, what do I know? In 2 years we might be under world war or something. The world keeps changing too fast, so I don't want to put my hands on the fire on this. But yeah, that's if you keep going as we are today, I think that's the expectation. It doesn't mean that it can't get out of that. It just means that it's a period of challenge, and periods of challenge usually leads to really cool results.
Yeah, that's a great answer. So, do you have a question that you would like to know an answer for the next person?
Maybe. What do they think makes a good designer or a great designer, actually? Just because I feel like everyone's perception of what makes a good designer is different, even though there are some similarities in everyone that I've ever had a question about that. But just, yeah, what makes a good designer? What actually makes a person that fits into that profile for them? And I'm not going to say anything else because I don't want to guide them into an answer.
Yeah. All right. Thanks a lot. I had super fun speaking with you.
Thank you, Nicholas.
Maybe we will meet sometime again in San Francisco or somewhere else. We'll see. It's in the bucket list.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you very much. Thanks. Really good. Happy to be here, and let's keep chatting. I love having conversations like this. So if you ever want to chat, even if it's not for the podcast or wherever, just give me a message and we'll find some time.
Yeah, sounds good. See you.
Oh, see ya. Bye.